Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming to watch my video, and today I am so excited because I am talking about billionaire romances, right? Actually, I haven't made a billionaire rec video in quite a while and I read a lot of them. I know some people have their interesting views on billionaire romance, but I myself really love to see a girl get spoiled. Or the other way around. Usually it's the man spoiling the woman. We just love to see it. And when they're able to just, take you on a jet-setting vacation at a moment's notice or fly you to Paris for a meal that night, it's fantastic. We love it. And so today that's what we're going to be talking about. And what better way to feel like a billionaire on a, working girl budget than by shopping with today's sponsor, which is Teddy Blake. They are having their anniversary sale right now, which it should be going now through July 25th. So I do have a link in my description where you can check them out. And I just wanted to show off my new bag that they sent me recently. It's so cute. The model that I have, I did write it down so that I didn't forget it. I have the Lola Croco 15-inch dark blue. So whenever I'm picking a bag, I want to make sure that it's multifunctional. And so for me, that means it's able to really carry my books around, right? So you can see this one's good and thick. It's beautiful. They're real genuine leather. Look at the inside, all the room here. Seriously, I can carry my computer. I carry multiple books. I can carry even my big Outlander books in here. It's amazing. So, this is my cute little keychain I got from my friend. I put on there, my little ghosty. But anyway, Teddy Blake, check out their sale. They have some great deals going on down there. And thank you so much for sponsoring this video, Teddy Blake. So let's get started with my favorite billionaire of 2023, because he has to be on this list. We have P.S. You're Intolerable by Julia Wolf, right? Okay, we have Elliot. Okay, Elliot, he's my whole heart and soul. Do I even need to talk about this book? I feel like y'all should know by now, but just in case you don't. This is a part of the Harder They Fall series. It is book 3 in the series, but I gotta tell you, you can just start with this one, okay? Particularly because I feel like the series really peaks with this book, and I just don't want you to not get to this one if you don't really like the first one. I want everyone to read this, but this is about Catherine and Elliot. So Catherine gets hired to be Elliot's personal assistant or executive assistant, and she's pregnant when she gets the job. She's currently with the baby daddy, but they're more friends than lovers type of thing, or she thought they were friends, until not too far into her pregnancy, he abandons her to move back to Australia and leaves her in debt in a house that they were supposed to rebuild together. Her savings are emptied, and she is now looking at becoming a single mom because that dude's not coming back. So when she gets hired by Elliot, he doesn't know that she's pregnant. Not that it would have been a big deal if he did know, because, you can't discriminate against someone for that. And not that he would, but just he's oblivious. He doesn't realize it. And he honestly can't tell she's pregnant until one of his, friends is in the office and they're having a meeting and they make a comment about it. And he's like, what? She's pregnant? He just doesn't notice. And we love him for that in a way, right? He's not making comments about it or noticing things about her. Also, she is plus size, so it does take a little bit longer to see. It's not that there aren't other things about her that show it, but it is true. It is true. And it wouldn't be any of his business even if she was. But Elliot has become more and more obsessed with her as she's been his assistant. And it starts as just she's so competent at her job. He has very high standards. He has these idiosyncrasies that come with being the, great mind that he has and what he does. And so to have her just so seamlessly, working with him, it's kind of just it's crazy. Now, the reason this is called P.S. You're Intolerable is that he is very difficult to work with. It's just that she's determined to do a good at her job. And one of her little rebellions is actually when she writes out his schedule every day, because he wants it on paper and on his computer and because these things. She writes this little rude note at the bottom. So here it says, P.S. your cyborg is showing. She'll write. And then she'll rip it off because she's not going to actually say something rude to her boss. And she tucks it away to keep it. But that's her little rebellion that she does. Of course, those come into the story later, but I'm not going to ruin that for you now. But we're just saying, she's very good at her job. he is a tough person to work with, but, you know, he is also a good boss. And there's also, like, Elliot just doesn't realize how important she's become to until she's letting him know she needs to go on maternity leave. And he's just like, well, how am I going to make do without you? And she's like, you'll be fine. I'm interviewing my replacement. They're going to do just fine. And once she is gone on maternity leave, he almost can't handle it, right? And so he ends up going to visit her after the baby's here, and he really is going there to find out when she's coming back to work. And you'll see when you read about Elliot, he isn't doing this out of a, like, how dare you take time for your new baby. He's doing it out of, like, he really can't get by without her. He is obsessed with her. He needs her there with him. He doesn't like this other guy that he hired to as a temp. Like, he wants her back. And when he gets to her house and he sees the state that she's been living in this unfinished house, it's dangerous. It's not a good place for her to be raising a newborn. He can't help himself. He's like, I live in a mansion. Please bring your baby and come stay with me. You can't say no for the sake of your child. Like, come stay with me. It'll be so much better for you. So yeah, this is an odd situation, moving in with your boss. But she's like, you're right, I can't say no for the sake of my baby. So she moves into Elliot's mansion, and then the training wheels are off, everybody, because now he's around her every day, showing all these little caring moments that he does, bonding with her little girl. It is just, there's no hope for her once that starts happening. Let's just say it. She has no chance. There's no chance for her. So this is my favorite book of 2023. As I said, you got to get it. You got to read it. It's fantastic. All right. Now we have a book that this is in one of my favorite new to me authors. I read it earlier this year. It was a favorite of the month, and that is The Pleasure Protocol by Darcy Romaine and Kat Alexander. This billionaire romance is definitely very kinky. It is focused around BDSM and also an escort billionaire relationship, okay? Not the first or only one that will show up on this, but when you're a billionaire, if you don't want to deal with relationships or being in too deep with someone, what do? You can hire someone because, again, you're a billionaire. You can do that. And so we have Nikolai and we have Corinne. And so Nikolai, he has had a escort that he's been using for quite a while to go to different events with him, to be his date, and then for him to, you know, they do also fuck. He's a dom, they do BDSM, it's great. Well, one day the escort he usually sees actually got married and is on his honeymoon. And so this escort is like, oh, hey, well, I have a friend, Corinne, who's in the business. You two would fit together so well. Let me give you her number. Please pair with her. If you don't like her, that's fine, but she'll get you by for the evening. And so he's like, well, I don't really have a choice, do I? I need to bring someone to this event. So he calls up Corinne, and she is very good at her job. And she comes and they immediately click. Like, they do the event, and then, you know, he wasn't sure if he would fuck her or not. Obviously, that's on the table because she's an escort. But they click so well that he's like, this is actually going to be really fun. I thought I just needed a date to get through the night, but, like, I really dig this chick. So they go back, they discuss some of their boundaries, and they have a great sexual experience. And so she now becomes his regular that he calls for all his events. And even when he doesn't have an event, they meet up. I think he sees her, is it weekly they end up doing? Or I'm not even sure. I think it's weekly they end up meeting up, whether he has an event or not. And they're like kinks match with each other. They're trying new things with each other, and it just builds from there. So this is like, it's not a slow burn this is an erotic romance. Like, there's smut right from the beginning, but it is slow in them realizing what all of this means, right? So it's slow to the love part of it. So high in lust, high in sexual activity, but it is still beautiful watching them realize that all of these things that they click with each other could mean like happily ever after for them if they let it, you know? That's what we got. So definitely a great one. All right. Then we have a recent release that I also loved. See, I told you I read a lot of good billionaires recently. There is Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. Oh, this book, y'all. This book made me so freaking happy. So this one is Raphael and Ellie. Ellie is the nanny to Raphael, and she's the nanny for his little boy, Nico. And Nico is actually going blind. He has a degenerative eye disease, and eventually he'll be blind, probably by the time he's 18, if not in his early 20s. And so there are a lot of experiences and a lot of things that Raphael wants his son to be able to see and build up this bank of memories that he'll have forever, even when he can no longer see. Which, I mean, right there, y'all, I'm slayed. I'm slayed through the heart with that already. Just, oh, so good. Now, Ellie, she is a songwriter, and she is happy to be this nanny, but also dealing with Raphael is very difficult. Like, she's in this job for Nico, and I mean, she does make good money, but Raphael is a tough boss to have. And not very long into this book, he actually fires her for a mistake that she makes. Now, I will be honest, like, it is kind of a big mistake, even though I understand why she made it. Like, you'll see when you read it. I think especially if you have children, you'll see why Raphael fires her. But he also has been waiting for the opportunity, because here's the thing that makes Raphael very messy in the beginning, but also very human. He craves time with his son. He's a very busy man. He wants more time with his son. He wants a close relationship with his son. And he feels like Ellie is the one who gets to have that. His son loves Ellie. He loves spending time with her. She's a live-in nanny, so he sees her all the time. And Raphael is very jealous and possessive of that time in a way that, like, makes him endearing while a jackass at the same time. Like, honestly, you'll see when you read it. Him being jealous of time with his son and the way that makes him lash out is very ugly. Like, it's tough to see. And that's why this book was also recently on a groveling video that I made, because he does later on really need to grovel for the things that he puts Ellie through. But Ellie, because of her love of Nico, she's willing to put up with a lot. And when she comes to the point where she's not willing to put up with it anymore, that's when Raphael has to make some decisions. So this was full of a lot of ups and downs. Yes, it is a very long book, but the relationship between Raphael and Ellie and Nico, and watching that, like, it was so worth it. It was a beautiful story. All right, next up is a new release. In fact, when you're seeing this video, I think this book just came out yesterday, so I don't have my physical copy of it yet, but it is If You Give a Billionaire a Bride by Ann Einerson. Now, actually, this whole series is Billionaires, so you can start with If You Give a Grump a Holiday Wish List, which is the novella that kicks off this family series. And the first book, which is If You Give a Single Dad a Nanny, that one is also a billionaire. So this whole family of brothers is a billionaire. But this one, I thought we'd talk about since it's new, coming out, and you can read any of these as a standalone. Of course you can. This is Cash and Everly. I should have known that. My niece's name is Everly, and there's so many books in the past few years that have had Everly as a heroine. I really should have remembered that. But anyway, so this one is a Married in Vegas type situation. So they've actually been kind of off and on friends since they were young. In fact, they even had a marriage pact when they were teenagers, one that Cash has never forgotten. And I believe this is because it's her brother's best friend. She actually has a twin brother, and this is her twin brother's best friend. And they both actually live in London working for their family companies, but they happen to both be in Vegas for some business, and they meet each other at a bar there. And Cash and her end up chatting, and they end up drunk, and they end up married. Now, again, Cash, he isn't mad about this. He has wanted to marry her for a while. He's been waiting to call in on that pact, which she might not have taken too seriously, but he definitely did. And so if there's a lot of cuts in this, it's because I am like at the very ends of a cold, and I'm sorry, I have to keep cutting because I'm hacking up a lung in here. I'm all right, but it's like, you know, at the very end of the cold when you just can't get rid of everything. I know, super attractive. That's why I'm cutting it out, but just so you know, all these jump cuts are not my normal thing, and it's because I'm having to stop and hack up a lung. So anyway, they end up married. And of course, Everly wants an annulment right away, and Cash is like, sure, we can do that. We'll do that. Well, then she finds out from her dad, who is a total prick, okay, we hate her dad, that there's actually a, like, acquisition that's happening between Cash's family and the Townsends. And he's like, didn't you know about this? And she's like, no, you didn't. Like, she didn't know anything about it. And so now, if they were to get an annulment, it would look really bad for the company. So they're like, you're not allowed to get an annulment yet. So now they're forced to stay married. Oh, darn. And they're supposed to act like they're together. Oh, darn. So they move in together and start pretending to be married. But Cash makes it clear pretty soon on that he will do whatever she wants. Like, they will get an annulment if she wants. But he's tired of biding his time to have her. He's like, I've waited long enough. Your brother, our relationship will survive because I'm going to treat you better than anyone else is going to. So your brother might be pissed when he finds out, but also I'm going to treat you better than anybody else. So who better to do it? And that, I'll be honest, is an argument that I love to see brought forward in brother's best friend romances, because it is true. It's like, it's one thing if the brother's best friend is like a player. That is often a thing. But if you're the brother's best friend, like, of course you're going to treat your friend's sister well, right? So, I don't know. I liked seeing Cash actually agree and be like, dude, you're going to be picky over whoever your sister dates. I'm going to treat her the best. So, anyway, he's also a billionaire. He's going to buy her whatever she wants, and it's fantastic. And it's adorable. There's a little bit of rom-com happening. Lots of good moments from all of the family involved, as always. And I'm very excited for the next one, which is actually going to be another side story. The next one is going to be If You Give a Lawyer a Kiss. And then it won't be until January that the next brother gets his book. But I'm excited for all of it. I really have been loving what Anne has been doing this year. All right, then we have King of Wrath by Anna Huang. Now, this one doesn't get talked about as much lately because, I don't know, some people like Pride and Greed and Sloth more than Wrath, but I think this was a very solid start to the series. Sorry, my lighting doesn't want to show you this because it's white, but this is the first book in the Kings of Sin series, and this one is Dante Russo and Vivian Lau, and this is amazing. And they are forced into a engagement by Vivian's parents. Now, she doesn't realize how much they are blackmailing Dante into this. She knows she's being forced into an arranged marriage with him, you know, being guilted, being strong-armed in by her father, but she doesn't realize that Dante's being blackmailed to do it. And Dante doesn't know that she doesn't know that. So their engagement starts off with a lot of animosity. And they agree to a year-long engagement in the beginning, and so she is forced to move in with him, and she's going to be living there for this engagement. And they'll be planning the wedding. But Dante, in his head, he's going to do everything he can to ruin her father and get out of this engagement. But the more time he spends with Vivian, of course, he's figuring out that, number one, she's being as manipulated as him. In fact, it might be even worse for her because she's the guy's daughter who's doing this. And so he starts to fall for her, and he just better be careful because if he tries to ruin her father, it could ruin his relationship with Vivian as well. So this one was great. Again, I think not enough people give that one the time of day, either because it's been a while since it's came out now, or because there's just been other shinier ones that people have wanted. But it's good. It's a good one for sure. All right, then we have another one that has just come out, and that is Wildest Dreams by Kristen Proby. And this is book 3 in her Wild of Montana series. And of course, this is the Billionaire brothers. This is Ryan Wild. And he actually has been away from Montana for many years. In an earlier book in this series, we see him move back. I think he does it at the end of the first book, but I know he does it in the second book because that's where we start to see some of this happen for him. There is a lot of animosity between him and Remy, who's the oldest brother, because Remy kind of blames Ryan for leaving when he needed him during some tough times in his life. And that is true, but people grieve in different ways, and it was very difficult for Ryan as well, which we'll learn in his. But what was really interesting about his story, so yeah, he is this billionaire, but he's come back and he's started a ranch there because he does want to be close to his family, and he's tired of his home base being somewhere else. He's like, I'm a billionaire, I can just as easily fly out of Montana as I can anywhere else, so I want to be here. And in book 2, as I said, there is some stuff that starts with him. He actually had adopted a son, an older son. He's 16 years old. Because there's this boy in town who he has been in a foster home. And again, we see this in the second book. So if you want the full story, you can start with the beginning of the series. Of course you can. But you can start with this one. But to give you the background, there was this kid in town, Jake, who he had gotten involved with kind of some bad kids. And Chase, who is our cop brother, he, in the second one, is kind of dealing with this, and he actually kind of rescues Jake from that foster family. But the reason Jake was in foster care is his parents died in a drunk driving accident, I believe caused by his father. I'm not sure, but they both died. And so then he was kind of abused in that family, and then he was put in a foster care family that was abusive. And when he gets into some trouble with the law in book 2, Chase sees that this is a good kid, and he actually gives him a chance by connecting him with Ryan. Okay, so that's how they met in the second one, is that Ryan, he has this new ranch, he has these horses that he is, I think I don't know if they're like rescuing them, I can't remember, but there's horses to work with, and Jake ends up being really great working with the horses, and so Ryan takes him on as a foster kid, and it doesn't take long before he's like, I don't want this kid to go anywhere. He's mine. Even if it's just for, this couple years that he's still in school, like, he's mine. And so he had adopted him at the end of that book. So you can see why I was already really excited for Ryan, because those are just traits that I adore it. I love it. I'm here for it, okay? So we start this book with, he actually had a one-night stand with Poppy, who runs a clothing shop in town. And she's best friends with the heroine from book 2. And at the wedding of Chase and this one, I think it was, or no, was it the other couple's wedding? I think it was the other couple's wedding. They have a one-night stand. And there's some miscommunication that happens. Nothing crazy. It's honestly very understandable. Like, she didn't leave her phone number and she had to leave, and he never reached out to her. So she's like, well, he didn't reach out to me, but she didn't leave her phone number. So he's like, maybe she doesn't want me to. So for a few months, like, nothing happens between them. But then Ryan is like, you know what? I want to try again. And so he reaches out to her. And as I said, they discuss this thing that I just said, where he's like, yeah, but you didn't leave your number. And she's like, yeah, but you know where I work. So there was some mixed signals, but I don't hold it against them, because again, when you have a one-night stand with someone, you don't really know where you're going. But the thing is, she is also his friend's sister. So he's like, you had to have known I knew what I was doing. Sleeping with my friend's sister, I was serious. So he proves to be serious about Poppy from the beginning. And this book really has low angst. There's a suspense element, the way that Kristen Proby puts a suspense element in everything. But I really love this couple. I loved how Ryan treated Jake, and how he treated Poppy was amazing. He does some serious billionaire stuff in this one, including Fashion Week somewhere in there, which is wonderful. Okay, then we of course have Minks by Sophie Lark. I won't say too much about this one, because I talk about this one a lot, or used to. But this one, has some of the same shades, as I said, of like the Pleasure Protocol. Although this one starts out a bit more with animosity between these two in the beginning, even though they're really hot for each other. So we have Ramses, who is a money mogul, basically. He's a stock guy and all these things he's done. He's billionaire. And we have Blake, who is a high-class escort. So high class that, like, she basically chooses who her clients are. She's so sexy. Everyone's into her, that kind of thing. And Ramses sees her at a party and he wants her. And his friend is like, dude, good luck. It's very difficult to get Blake. And so he is very intrigued by her, and he starts to try to get her. Now, Blake, she knows how to play it cool and how to get a guy. She knows how to land him for sure. But when they finally have their first, session together, their night together, it's honestly more intense than either of them is prepared. And the sexy things that they do with each other and the emotions that get involved in that just really, like, shocks them. And for sure, it kind of intimidates Blake, because she's like, I don't want to have feelings for a client. Whereas Ramses is like, wow, this was amazing. So this one, definitely a lot of play between the two of them, literally. This one is so sexy, as Sophie does so well. And yeah, I just really enjoy it. Really great billionaire romance. Okay, we have My Favorite Kidnapper by Melanie Moreland. This one is so cute. Look at this cover. See if it'll show you. This is a kidnapping romance, but it's also a rom-com, okay? And it involves baking, and it involves just some of the cutest stuff ever. So our heroine in this, I always forget her name, I'm sorry, I'm bad with it, so Dante is our hero, and I think it's B is her name, but let me check. Brianna, yeah, it's Brianna. And she's a baker, and he actually meets her at, I believe it's his goddaughter's wedding. She's the one who's done the baking, and he, like, falls for her immediately. They have some interactions, and he's just totally smitten with her. And so he ends up kidnapping her, bringing her to his home, and basically telling her he wants her to bake him a cake every day for 30 days. And like, then he'll let her go. But really, he's planning to use the 30 days to convince her to be his. So that's the kind of guy we're dealing with Dante. Very charismatic, very sexy, very determined to have her, for sure. So this one, pure fun, pure sugary sweetness. It's pretty bonkers, which is always fun to see. But Melanie Moreland writes with such heart and so much wonder that I enjoy it so much. Okay, then, I mean, we of course have Daddy Rollin'. Oh, that just flew out. This is from Book Bonanza. It says, I found my kink in a Sarah Kate book. One of these things. But anyway, I think I got Wander to sign this one too, did I? Yeah, I did. I got Wander to sign this one too. Because he's, if you don't know, that's the model on this cover. He's also a photographer that does most of some of the sexy pictures that you see around. Like, who else has Wander done? Well, he's done all of Sarah Kate's. And he's done, of course, I just forget everyone. You'll know. He's done a lot of, like, dark, sexy man covers. And this one is beautiful, too. So, he was a model for this one. But this one is an age gap. Slight daddy kink in this one. But Ronan, he ends up meeting this girl there, whose name is Daisy. And he ends up, like, buying her at an auction there. And so that's why it's called Highest Bidder. So the club isn't really her scene. She's not the kind of girl to take a rich guy home. She's more of a piano-playing, van-living, free spirit kind of girl. So he puts down $100,000 for her. He's too old, too rich, too cocky. And oh yeah, he once dated my mother. Except he doesn't know that. He has no idea who I am. So one date turns into a trip to Paris, and then he offers her to live with him in his penthouse, because that van living part that she mentioned, yeah, she's not living in the safest place. So he brings her to live with him. So yeah, this one, very complicated relationship between everybody in this one, but it's Sarah Kate still manages to write very sweet heroes, even when they're alpha and, you know, in charge like that. And I really love Ronan. He's super sexy, and yeah, this one is a really hot one there. And then we have to, of course, round it out with Wild Love by Elsie Silver. We have Ford Grant, and we have Rosie, who, this is another best friend's sister or brother's best friend, whichever way we go. And they were also kind of like childhood, like, enemies, but in the way that children are. And now Rosie is back in town because she has lost her job and she needs a place to work. And Ford is also there starting a record label because he has had, he was like forced out of a different record label that like he started. I believe that's what happened. And so he's starting his own that's going to be Rose Hill Records. And she ends up becoming kind of his like assistant / like really only employee in the office there or whatever. And really he's secretly pined for her since they were young, but he kept it as kind of an animosity at the same time because he knew that nothing could really happen between the two of them. But, you know, he definitely underestimates what being in the same room working with her every day is going to do to him. You know, like it's not going to be as easy as he thinks it is to ignore her or to not get riled up by her. So I love this. It was a very slow burn actually for an Elsie Silver, and I really hope that her writing going forward carries a quality of this, because you really took the time to get to know the characters before they were sexualizing each other and before we were getting down and dirty. Like, there's a lot at stake if things don't work out for them. You know, she doesn't have a job to go to if it doesn't work out with him. She doesn't want to ruin a relationship for her brother with him or any of that, right? There's also a great cameo from Willa in here because Ford is Willa Grant's brother, right? So there's lots of good stuff in this one. So there you go. Those are some billionaire romances for when you want to feel like a spoiled princess, okay? And again, definitely check out the anniversary sale that Teddy Blake has going on to, you know, find yourself a sexy bag here to help you feel like a billionaire heiress or whatever you want to be. So thank you so much for watching, my friends, and we'll see you next time. Bye.